Welcome back, everybody. John Arvosis here with the Arvosis Report. Let me get TikTokers going here, and then we'll get the show going. While we're waiting, everybody introduce yourselves. Say where you're from, our tradition. All right, here go the TikTokers. How's everybody doing? Was it Thursday already, December 29? Lovely. I'm going to dinner afterwards with a cousin, which will be very nice. Looking forward to. And it was almost 60 degrees in Chicago today. Yay. So that was nice. Hello, TikTokers. Thank you for joining us. I stretch before we start. Good evening, all. Evening. How's everybody doing? Hello, San Francisco. TikTokers, hello, Sweden. TikTokers, say where you guys are hailing from as well, if you would. And we'll wait a minute for the TikTok brigade to fully come on, and then I will jump right in. Mario. Cologne with support from some flag I can't tell. Hey guys, England, London, Scotland, which I still have to get back to Scotland. Alabama, excellent. Missouri, been in Missouri, not for a long time. Oh, good morning in Australia, Ashley. And the Bronx, and what else we got? Alberta. Somebody was sharing, actually, was it Melissa? I'm trying to remember. Somebody on our Discord was sharing their snow pictures from Lake Louise, and I was very jealous. It looked just idyllic, like a wonderful Christmassy kind of thing. It was very nice, snowy and beautiful. All right, guys, I will just start right in. I am John Arvosis. Welcome. This is the Arvosis Report, my nightly show, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Typically, I do about half-hour news to start the show, and then about half-hour question and answer with you guys. On TikTok, you can submit your questions via the Q&A link, which you will find in my profile. On YouTube, etc. Use the comment box at the bottom. Please do follow me on all these platforms. That helps a lot. And please do keep the gifts coming as well. Thank you for that heart right there. Who was that? L. I do this for free. This is my full-time job. At least I've been trying to do this full-time since February when the war started. And I appreciate your guys' support because it helps keep me going. So please keep the gifts coming on TikTok and YouTube. I appreciate it. Let's dive right in. I want to mention first, we're actually doing another fundraiser. So we've raised over $80,000 for Ukrainian humanitarian aid since the war has started. I have not touched a dime of that. 100% of your money goes to Ukraine. And we've got another fundraiser this time. Thank you, Frank. This time, we are going to raise money for the staff of the Ukrainian charity that we've been working with. There's a Ukrainian charity that basically Americans will know a similar name. It's a Meals for Wheels type charity, where basically they go and they deliver food to shut-ins, food to people in need, people obviously that are in trouble because of the war, people who are stuck in the subway because of bombings, because using the subway as a shelter. Anyway, the staff at this organization, Harkovu Mir, that we've been working with, I did not realize they're all volunteers, meaning even the head of the organization is a volunteer. Even she's not getting paid. Well, we are raising money to buy them flashlights. It's our Christmas gift to them is, get this, Christmas gifts, flashlights. They need flashlights because they are visiting people around the country and they're visiting people where there often isn't electricity. So if you guys can help out, we're raising money to buy flashlights for our Ukrainian friends at the charity that we've been working with since the war started, so they can deliver food, deliver groceries, deliver socks, or we just raised money for them to deliver toys to kids. They're also doing that too. And a lot of times there isn't power and they need the flashlights. So if you guys can help out, you can go to my link tree, aravosis.com. You can donate there. Click on aravosis.com. The very first thing that comes up will be a description of the fundraiser we're doing to get flashlights for the volunteers. And as always, we're collecting it through my friend Vlad in Ukraine. Vlad actually is a volunteer with the organization, but Vlad also has been coordinating all the fundraising for us. I'm not getting a dime. So go to aravosis.com or in TikTok, just click the very first link in my profile, the only link in my profile. And you TikTokers, the first thing that comes up will be Vlad's PayPal. How much? The flashlights are not cheap. The flashlights are about $50 each, and we've got 30 staff. Now, I'm not sure we're going to get enough money to do all of that. Although $50 times 30, $1,500. Am I right? Or no? Yeah, $1,500. That's not, that's doable. But we're buying really good flashlights. These are flashlights for them to go on visits to basically deliver food aid and stuff. These are not flashlights for them to use at home when the power goes out. We want to get them, something really good. So in any case, if you guys can help, I will report this again at the very end. But thank you guys for joining us. Let me keep going here. Thank you for the gift, Pesci. So the Russians have attacked Ukraine again today. Big surprise, huge volley of missiles against the Ukrainians. Let me see here. The Russians attacked Ukraine with 69 air and sea-based cruise missiles launched from aircraft and ships, following the overnight kamikaze drone attack as well. The Ukrainians claimed they shot down 54 of the 69 cruise missiles, which is good. But typically what happens with these attacks is the Russians will throw a lot of cruise missiles, a lot of other missiles, these S-300 missiles that are kind of dumb missiles. They're missiles that are intended to be used to shoot down incoming rockets, which is what the Ukrainians use them for. The Russians are running so low on missiles that the Russians use these missiles that are used to shoot down rockets to actually shoot at Ukrainian buildings, because the Russians don't care what they hit. They're willing to hit anything. It's all about a terror campaign with the Russians. Well, in any case, the Ukrainians were able to shoot down 54 of 69 cruise missiles, which is great. It still means 15 cruise missiles got through and caused a lot of damage, right? Thank you, Larry, for that. Russia launched 120 missiles total in the last day. Ukraine may have sent another drone at Engels Air Base, which is a Russian air base. Thank you, JWF. The Ukrainians have been going, and Megwood, thank you there as well. The Ukrainians have been going really gangbusters, going against a... thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Lisa gave in the fundraiser that we're doing. Actually, mods, if you want to explain maybe what the fundraiser is again as I'm talking, I'll mention it at the very end. I just don't want to keep, interrupting the news to tell people, but I appreciate it. Maybe you could just tell people. Thank you for that. In any case, the Ukrainians may have hit the Engels Air Base in Russia again. This is an air base that is about 350 miles or maybe 300 miles into Russia from Ukraine, 450 kilometers or so. And it is one of the two big sort of nuclear air bases, meaning where the planes take off. Thank you, Charles. Where the Russian planes take off that carry the nuclear weapons by plane. Well, it is also where the Russians have been launching a lot of their missile attacks on Ukraine from. Basically, the planes take off, they carry missiles, they shoot the missiles, right? Voila. And the, oops, I'm getting rid of you. Somebody thinks they're going to swear at me in Greek. I don't think so. I don't think so. Somebody thought some troll thought they were going to come on and like swear at me in Greek and nobody would get it, except I speak Greek. So bye-bye. In any case, what is interesting is 2 different times the Ukrainians have attacked this airbase where the Russians have their strategic bombers, which are also the planes that the Russians are using to launch missiles at Ukraine. Well, it looks like the Ukrainians may have attacked again overnight. The Russians claim they shot down a drone, a Ukrainian drone. We don't know, because the Ukrainians tend not to give us, all the details, because the Ukrainians are trying to keep things secret. But the fact that the Russians are even admitting it happened and claiming they shot down a drone means, I doubt they shot down the drone. I think it means the Ukrainians once again went after this Russian airbase, which is a big deal. And it keeps the Russians a little bit on the defensive, because the Russians now have to worry about how much are the Ukrainians going to be going after Russian territory, right? Which is interesting, right? Boy, we've got Greek trolls today. This is sort of interesting. Okay, just for mods, just to sort of keep this up, anybody in a foreign language, do the translate thing and see what they're writing, because we get a lot of trolls being kind of jerky in all sorts of languages. What do? We're a popular broadcast and we get trolls in every language. Whoopa! What can I do? Another interesting story today, which fortunately looks like it's being diffused a little bit, is a Ukrainian S-300 missile, which is the same missile that landed in Poland a few weeks ago, landed in Belarus overnight. Now, the question is, we don't know if this is a missile that was shot down by the Belarusians. At first, they claimed Well, they're claiming a lot of things, right? We don't know if the missile was shot down by the Belarusians or if the missile went after a Russian missile, blew up, because this is an anti-aircraft or an anti-missile missile. So these are the kind of missiles the Ukrainians shoot to try to intercept the incoming Russian missiles. We don't know if it blew up, but then, after the explosion came landing in Belarus or not. We don't know. I will show you on my handy dandy map. What we do know is something appears to have landed in Belarus. It appears to be part of the Ukrainian missile. The Belarusian military or the Belarusian government sort of called in the Ukrainian ambassador, but is downplaying the incident and saying, hey, these things happen, which is interesting. Now, just to show you on the handy dandy map, Belarus is up here. Okay, here's Ukraine, here's Kyiv. Here's where most of the fighting's taking place, right? The Russians invaded and took all of that. The Russians took this back in 2014. Oh, thank you, Walrack, for the gift there. Belarus is up here. Russia is over here, okay? Belarus over here. Well, Belarus is important because it's run by a dictator, and the Russians worked with this dictator to invade Ukraine the first time, not the first time, but earlier this year. Basically, a number of the Russian troops attacked from all over, but they also attacked by going through Belarus and coming straight down at Ukraine. So Belarus is a party to the war, but Belarus has not actually used its troops to attack Ukraine. They've allowed the Russians to come in and attack, but they haven't actually used their own troops. So the Belarusians have not actually invaded themselves. But, they're allowing the Russians to use their territory to invade. So they are a party. I mean, they are a party to all of this. In any case, the Belarusians are being pretty good about it. This missile did come down from the Ukrainians in Belarusian land, and the Belarusians are pretty much saying, it happens. So that's a good thing. Just want to remind folks, this is the Aravosis Report. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is John Aravosis. This is my nightly show, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine for about the first half hour or so. And then the second half of the show, I will take your guys' questions and comments. Submit your questions on TikTok via the Q&A link in my profile. Thank you for the glasses there, Carla. On YouTube, you can submit questions at the bottom, as you know. And I also have a Patreon. So I always tell folks, if you've been coming for a while, especially a couple months now, and you're liking my work, maybe go to my Patreon and see if you can help out. Patreon is just kind of a neat way where basically you can make a contribution and continue it every month, like $5 a month, something like that, until you decide to cancel it. I'd appreciate it. And the best part is, if you do $5 a month or more, you can also link it to my Discord and become a VIP member of the Discord, which gives you certain rights to like our VIP auction and other things, but is also just a really nice way of helping me. So I appreciate it. You can go to, it's patreon.com/Aravosis, but actually all of my links, the easiest way to find my links is just go to aravosis.com. Or if you're on TikTok, just go to my profile, click the link in my profile, the link tree. Everything's there. The fundraising we're doing is there for Ukraine. My Discord, everything's there. My Patreon. So thank you for that. Okay, I wanted to give a decent chunk, maybe the next 10, 15 minutes. Thank you, Louis, there. To talking about, there's an article in Politico today. Politico is a very good American news outlet based in Washington, D.C. They focus on politics in Washington. That's their real expertise. And they're very good. They did a big article today on Western aid to Ukraine and kind of where it stands, particularly looking at, the HIMARS, which came in months ago and caused a big impact, great impact for Ukraine. The HIMARS is a rocket system, right, that can shoot multiple rockets at once, basically on the back of a truck, I guess I would say. Thank you, Inspired Woman. You are always generous. You are especially generous with that one, I know. Thank you. I appreciate that. The HIMARS is basically a rocket system that's on the back of a truck, in essence. It can shoot off, and then the truck can drive away. And it's great because it makes it harder for the Russians to blow it up, because typically you'd shoot something off, and the Russians would see where it was, and they would reverse engineer the track, right? Thank you, JWF. Well, and they would fire at you. Well, in this case, it shoots and it can scoot, which is great. Makes it much safer, but also the HIMARS, the rockets are very good, very precise, very computerized, and they're really good at hitting their targets. The problem is, to date, and we've talked about this before, but I want to have a much larger discussion right now. One of the problems, there's two problems with the HIMARS, okay? One is the rockets don't go very far. Well, let me be a little more precise. There are rockets and there are rockets for the HIMARS. The rockets we've been giving Ukraine can only go about 50, 60 miles, maybe. So you're talking maybe 80 to 100 kilometers. That's it. There are rockets that go a heck of a lot farther than 50 or 60 miles that the HIMARS can shoot. We're just not giving it to the Ukrainians. Some of those rockets, for example, are called ATACMS, which I love the name ATACM. It's ATACM. I'm assuming the abbreviation is pronounced ATACM because it's funny and also appropriate. Well, the ATACMS can go 200 miles. So instead of 50 miles, 200 miles or 300 kilometers or more, which is amazing, right? Well, so what happens? The Ukrainians get the HIMARS. They get these shorter range rockets that go 50, 60 miles. They actually do a really good job blowing up Russian ammunition, blowing up Russian command centers, blowing up Russian military vehicles, things like this, right? Doing really good. So what do the Russians do? The Russians move everything back beyond 50 miles, right? So the Russians have moved their headquarters more than 50 miles away. They've moved their ammunition depots more than 50 miles away. Well, now it makes the HIMARS less effective because we have not given them rockets that can go far enough to hit the high value targets, the targets they really need to hit on the Russian side, right? Well, what do they need instead? They need ATACMS, which are the rockets that go farther. Now, let me read you some quotes here from this Politico article, just to sort of remind folks, if anybody's new on YouTube or on TikTok or anywhere, what we're talking about is an article that showed up in Politico today, which is a very good American news publication, and it's looking at the current weapons we're providing Ukraine, especially the HIMARS, and future weapons the Ukrainians want, like the ATACMS. Thank you, Al, for that, which are rockets that can shoot much farther. And the question becomes, why haven't we provided these rockets yet? Since a lot of people have been saying for months the Ukrainians need these rockets. Now, any of you who have watched the show before may know my theory on all of this. I think the West doesn't want Ukraine to win. Now, it's less controversial than it sounds, because we also don't want Russia to win. Okay, here's the thing, and I've mentioned this before, and it's no longer just looking at Biden's rhetoric, but looking at, it's not just Biden, by the way, too. I think it's the French, I think it's the Germans, I think it's the Hungarians, I think it's the Turks. There's a lot of people I think that are causing problems here. But basically, President Biden has said repeatedly, we can't let Ukraine lose. And then he said in the same speech, we can't let Russia win. And he said this multiple times. You hear this and you think, well, that's great. He wants Ukraine to win. He wants Russia to lose. He said, we can't let Russia win and we can't let Ukraine lose. There's a middle ground there. It's Ukraine and Russia tying. He doesn't want Russia to win, but he doesn't want Ukraine to win. Biden has made clear from the beginning, and this isn't just Biden, I think. I really do think this is the NATO allies that are causing problems too. Biden has been worried from the beginning that if Ukraine wins this war, Russia's going to freak out and go nuclear or do something crazy, right? Biden is also very worried, and again, I say it's not just Biden, I say it's NATO, very worried that if Ukraine goes after Crimea, and Crimea is the peninsula in the south that Russia stole in 2014. So this whole war started because Russia invaded in 2014 and stole Crimea. Okay, and now claims it's part of Russia. Then they reinvaded earlier this year and stole all of this land, and now they're claiming all of this land is part of Russia too. The Ukrainians want all of this back, and they want all of this back. Well, the West is worried. Our governments are all worried. Sure, Ukraine can get this back, but if Ukraine tries to take this back, Vladimir Putin will get very angry, and who knows what Putin will do if he gets angry. That is the underpinning of this entire concern. I think NATO, and it's Biden, but it's also the NATO allies. As I said, I think it's the French, I think it's the Germans, I think it's the Hungarians, I think it's the Turks. They're worried that, okay, Ukraine can take back the land it lost this year. That would be okay. But if Ukraine takes back Crimea, they're afraid Putin's going to use nukes. Now, I have talked about this repeatedly. I don't think I don't want to speak so definitively because you never know. I just don't think there is any chance of Putin using nukes. Now, let me read this to you first. I'm going to read you a few quotes here as to what got me concerned about this whole topic today in reading Politico. Let me read this to you. Okay, thank you, Louis, for the llama. Louis the llama. A Western official told Politico, "What I think the U.S. and others are wrestling with now is what does a successful end game look like?" Said one Western official, who, like others interviewed, requested anonymity to discuss strategic discussions. When you're looking at expanding, whether in terms of capability or literally expanding the battlefield, there will be some questions raised. Now, they're talking about expanding the capability of the Ukrainians, is what they're talking about, okay? Listen to this. When you're looking at expanding, there will be some questions raised about, does this make that day further off when we can get a kind of favorable conditions for the kind of settlement the Ukrainians want and we can support? I know these quotes are a little bit thick. What this person just said was, a Western official told the American media that we've got to think, when the Ukrainians ask us for more weapons, especially better weapons, like these longer range rockets. This whole article is about the longer range rockets. We have to think, would giving the Ukrainians longer range rockets make that day further off when we can get a kind of favorable conditions for the kind of settlement? Would it put the day further off that we can get some kind of settlement to the war by giving the Ukrainians better weapons? Right? Why would it put the end of the war off further if we gave the Ukrainians better weapons? It would only put it off further if not giving them the weapons would make the Ukrainians have to give in and give up. That's what they're saying. This is what is worrying me about all of these quotes. And I have been saying this from the beginning because I've been hearing this from Western leaders, including my own president, President Biden, from the beginning. You will see quote after quote from them that's really weird, but basically says, if we give, again, I've got another quote. Let me keep going. Ben Hodges, former American general, good guy. Army, head of the army in Europe, very good guy. He actually wants the U.S. to give these ATACMS, these long-range missiles, to Ukraine. Okay, he's on board. He says the Biden administration, is going to use their best judgment on how do you help Ukraine as much as possible without this growing into a conflict between the U.S. and Russia or NATO and Russia. Okay, fair enough, right? I don't see how it grows into a conflict like that, but fair enough. Elise, I'll get to yours in a quick sec. Listen to this again now. So this is another quote from the article. I'm reading an article from Politico, an American news publication, talking about the concerns among NATO and the Biden administration about providing better weapons, basically longer range missiles to Ukraine. Okay, listen to this. U.S. officials are still debating their effectiveness, these longer range missiles, in the forthcoming fight. First of all, bull. I mean, absolute bull. They say this every time. The arguments the Biden administration always gives on these things is, one, we just don't know if they'd be effective. Two, oh, it would take those crazy Ukrainians. It would take them so long to learn how to use these new weapons. And then the Ukrainians always surprise us and are able to learn the weapon like that. And in terms of their effectiveness, the Ukrainians blow the Russians out of the water with these weapons, right? So give me a break, those first two. Then they get to the nut of it. And whether shipping them to Kyiv will provoke Russia into escalating the conflict. This gets better. This is now a new argument from the Biden administration where they're conflating the two arguments. Listen to this quote, okay? Listen. Now, usually the quote is nuclear war. Oh my God, if we give Ukraine better weapons, it'll be nuclear war because Russia will freak out. Listen to this. Listen to this. Whether shipping them, the long-range missiles, to Kyiv will provoke Russia into escalating the conflict to more dangerous levels, okay, that could prolong the timetable for potential peace talks. So U.S. officials are worried that giving Ukraine longer range weapons and better weapons will prolong the timeline for peace talks. That's the same BS the Western official said earlier in the article. The only reason giving Ukraine better weapons is going to prolong the time, in other words, is going to put off the war ending, is because Ukraine will be able to keep defending itself and Ukraine will be able to keep getting its land back from Russia. In other words, it's as if somebody is being attacked on the street and you say, I'm not going to come help you because the more I help you, the longer the attack will go on. Wouldn't it be better just not to help you much at all? And then the attack is over fast, right? That's what they're saying. They're saying they're worried that the war will go on too long if we help Ukraine. So we should not help them, or we should help them less and let the war be over sooner, which means Russia gets what it wants. This stuff is driving me bonkers. And I won't go through the whole nuclear analysis today necessarily, but I've talked about this a lot in this show. I can talk about it later if you guys really want to. But I think this whole idiocy of worrying that, oh my God, we're going to have nuclear war with Russia. We've got nukes and Russia has nukes. They know damn well that if they use their nukes against us, we will destroy them. And if we use our nukes against them, they will destroy us. Nobody is using nukes against anybody. It's not happening. It's not happening because all of us know it is called mutual assured destruction. You can Google it. It's called mutual assured destruction. And it is basically the whole basis of really the US and Russia and the Soviet Unions at the time, sort of nuclear programs from the beginning, was we are mutually assured that we can destroy each other. Therefore, neither of us will use the missiles. So in a really weird way, the nuclear missiles helped keep the peace between our two countries because we were sure we wouldn't go to war. Why would giving Ukraine better weapons somehow provoke a war with Russia and us when, again, if that war were nuclear, both of us lose. But here's the problem. If we go to war with Russia and the war is conventional, it is a non-nuclear war, Russia loses. Russia loses like within a week, if not days, of this war if we go to war with Russia. Russia is losing to Ukraine. At the very least, Russia ain't doing well with Ukraine, right? They are 10 months into a war that they thought was going to take 3 days, maybe 10 days, right? And the Ukrainians are beating them to beating the bejesus out of them. What do you think would happen if not only we had the same weapons the Ukrainians are using, but actually much better weapons? Because we haven't given Ukraine our fighter jets, our airplanes, none of those weapons. We haven't given them our cruise missiles. We haven't given them our ships. There's a lot of weapons. Thank you, Inspired Woman. There's a lot of weapons we haven't given the Ukrainians, and we've got those weapons. But now they'd be run by American pilots, by American soldiers. And God bless the Ukrainians. They're amazing fighters. I would still posit that it's possible the United States Army might even be better than the Ukrainian Army, right? Then you've got the Brits. Then you got the French, the Germans. Okay, French and Germans, I don't know, but certainly the Brits would be amazing. I don't mean to knock the French and Germans, but the Norwegians, amazing. Poland, pretty amazing. There was an interesting article today about Poland's military. It just, this stuff drives me crazy. There is no, I will sort of summarize this and then get to Elise's question. The Russians are losing to the Ukrainians. There is no way the Russians want America to enter the war as well and all of NATO to enter the war as well. Okay, my friend Frank weighs in and says, actually, the French do have an excellent army. Okay, good to know. Even the French. So even the French as well. If the Russians cannot beat the Ukrainians, they don't want all the rest of us joining in as well. Thank you, Tattooed. And that's why I would really like somebody from the administration who's afraid of all of this, who's afraid, oh, Russia's going to escalate and go crazy if we help the Ukrainians too much. Why they explain the logic to me of why Russia would escalate, and telling me, oh, the Russians are crazy. Give me a break. The Russians aren't crazy. They're not crazy. Putin's not crazy, right? So tell me how Putin would say in his head, hey, I'm losing against Ukraine. You know what would be really cool? Getting 30 NATO countries to also be at war with me. Wouldn't that be cool? Come on. All right, Elise, sorry about that. La plus puissante de l'UE. Oh, really? France? Okay. Frank is here defending the honor of the thank you. What was it? Evov? I'm going to say Evov. I'm just going to say Evov. Thank you for that. Let me pull Elise's question. Okay, Frank is defending the honor of the French, saying they've got the strongest military in the EU. Okay, fair enough. All right, Elise is saying, I wonder if the Western allies worry that full Ukrainian victory would have a domino effect on Kazakhstan, etc., a more general destabilization. Well, I mean, Elise, it's funny. Elise is quite, I'm not criticizing Elise because she might be right, but it reminds me there was a T-shirt that was very popular in the 1990s when the whole sort of gay rights movement, the modern gay rights movement, really sort of exploded in America, became big news and all of this. And it was a T-shirt. It was very funny, and it showed a woman like a homemaker, but it was like a cartoon from the 1950s, and she's looking and she says, if gays get their civil rights, then everyone will want them. And it was the argument against gay rights, but it was a joke basically saying, if we give civil rights to the gays, then everybody's going to want them. And it was like, well, of course, that's a good thing that everybody would want their civil rights, right? And it kind of reminds me of the same thing. Like, well, if Ukraine beats Russia, then Kazakhstan and the other former Soviet republics also may decide to stand up to Russia and go, you know what? We're not going to put up with your BS anymore. No, I think that's possible. I mean, I think I would not be surprised too, Elise. I wouldn't be surprised if, and I'm not knocking the Biden administration for this, but they're driving me nuts. If part of the calculus of the Biden administration is if Putin gets beat in Ukraine, you could have instability in Russia itself. He could get thrown out of office. And who comes next? Could it be somebody worse? Right. And unfortunately, what worries me is this feels like the old sort of great power setup you had with Russia and America. And this notion that basically it's better to have the status quo we have, where, basically it's better to sort of keep things the way they are, these two blocks, right? The whole thing with Eastern Europe, too. Maybe, I don't even know. I don't even want to get into this whole thing. It's just ticking me off because I think when it comes down to it, I think the biggest problem is we're just afraid. We're afraid of scaring the Russians. I'm sorry. Let me make one more point. Here. Okay. It's YOU apostrophe Ari. One final point here is that Biden had made a quote when he was doing the press conference with Zelensky a few weeks ago. Zelensky was in Washington, D.C., right, the Ukrainian president. And Biden was talking about this issue of providing more weapons and everything. And the Ukrainians wanting more weapons. And he gave this really weird quote about, well, I've got and the Politico article has the quote, but basically it was, actually, hold on, I've got the quote here. Let me pull this up. Hang on. It was a very weird quote, and nobody kind of jumped on it. I heard the quote and I heard Biden saying this, and I went, what? Listen to Biden's quote in response to basically why isn't the U.S. providing better weapons to Ukraine, okay? Including these long-range ATACMS, these long-range missiles that Ukraine wants. Biden, the idea that we would give Ukraine material that is fundamentally different than is already going, there would have a prospect of breaking up NATO and breaking up the European Union and the rest of the world. They're not looking to go to war with Russia. They're not looking for a third world war. And I'm listening to this going, okay, so putting aside the goofy third world war crap that Biden seems to be buying into, if we give Ukraine missiles, by the way, missiles that go just as far as the Irani missiles that Russia is purchasing. Russia's purchasing missiles from Iran that go 300 kilometers, 200 miles. Guess how long the missiles are that we've got that we could give Ukraine that we're not giving them? 200 miles, 300 kilometers. So somehow this fundamentally changes the game, Biden says. If we give Ukraine the same rockets that Russia bought from Iran, not fundamentally changing the game. It's literally evening the playing field. And by the way, let me give the Biden administration the perfect argument. Here you go. Well, Russia just bought X number of these missiles from Iran that go 200 miles. So we're going to sell Ukraine X number of missiles that go 200 miles to even the playing field. And if Russia doesn't want further escalation, Russia will stop escalating by buying these rockets. It's not rocket science, so to speak. The second half of the quote, but this is the position though. If we gave Ukraine these weapons that fundamentally different than what's already going, there would be the prospect of breaking up NATO and breaking up the European Union. Biden is suggesting that someone in the European Union and someone in NATO, the overlap there, has said that if we provide these long-range rockets, they are going to very publicly say no. The idea of breaking up, by the way, means it's Hungary. I was just thinking, Webadeb just wrote Hungary. A number of you did on TikTok, and I think that's exactly it. It didn't hit me until now. The overlap of the EU and NATO, and it's not just they would get pissed off and go public against us. Thank you, Annie. We've got a whale. Those whales really are like the best gift on TikTok. Thank you. Wave for the whale. That's just the coolest thing. Thank you, Annie. There would be a prospect of breaking up NATO and breaking up the European Union. So he's not talking about NATO. Somebody would get pissed off and disagree with us publicly. Somebody would pull out of the sanctions. It's not what he's saying. He's saying they would leave the EU and they would leave NATO. Turkey isn't a member of the EU. Hungary is. France and Germany wouldn't be leaving the EU and leaving NATO if we gave longer range rockets. Hungary might. And at that point, you tell Hungary, take a hike. Because honestly, Turkey, strategically, very important. Unfortunately, because Turkey is kind of bordering on a little bit of a dictatorship lately, but Turkey is strategically super important because of where it's located, being a Muslim country, being right there at the top, at the beginnings of the Middle East, super important. Hungary, I mean, okay. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't want to lose Hungary from NATO or the EU, but Hungary, really? I mean, why do we care? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, pisses me off. Just pisses me off. All right, let me give you the last couple stories here. The UK is going to commit $2.77 billion. Obviously, it'll be in euros, or not euros. It'll be in pounds, but $2.77 billion in aid to Ukraine in 2023. And my favorite little story from today was according to Bloomberg, the United States is considering sending Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine, which would be an armored infantry transport and would be considered a significant, increase in weapons. We're considering it. It's news that we're considering it. That's not news. That's not news. I don't know who leaked this story or why. I don't know if it's a trial balloon, and trial balloons are basically stories you leak to see what the public reaction is. But give me a break. We're considering it. Woo! Exciting. Any case, give me a break. All right. So I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. Thank you for joining us, guys, today. This is my daily show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. We are now moving into the part of the show where we talk about your guys' questions. I take your guys' questions, take your comments. You can submit questions via TikTok, via the Q&A link in my profile. You can submit them on YouTube and elsewhere via the comment box at the bottom. I do this for free. I am independent media, so if you support my work and like my work, please consider doing a super chat question like Daniel just did. Thank you, Daniel. Or doing a gift on TikTok. The gifts on TikTok actually are very helpful and put money in the pocket of the creators as well. So thank you guys for doing that. Also, today will be Patreon day. If you've been liking my work, consider joining my my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Aravosis, or you can go to aravosis.com, my last name, or on TikTok, just go to the link in my profile. That link, it'll take you right there. Link of stuff. One of the things that pops up will be my Patreon. It's a nice, simple way of, putting in maybe $5 a month of supporting my work, and it helps keep my helps me by knowing sort of a regular source of income. I appreciate that. All right, let's jump right in here. And then at the end of the show, I'll talk about a fundraiser. You know what? Let me tell you again right now. Why not? I'm not taking any money for the fundraiser. I might as well. I'm saying I get nothing out of this personally, so I have no problem asking you for help. So I've got another fundraiser up, and then we're going to go to your questions. We are raising money for the staff of the charity in Kharkiv, Ukraine, that we have been working with from the beginning of the war. Now, we have raised over $80,000 from all of you guys, okay? I have not taken a dime of it. All of it's gone to Ukraine, and a lot of that money has gone through the charity in Kharkiv that provides food to shut-ins, food to refugees, food to people who are stuck living in the subways because of all the bombings, also providing clothing, also providing gifts for kids. We raised several $1,000s to provide Christmas gifts and New Year's gifts to Ukrainian kids that the charity, with the help of the military, has been delivering. So this charity has been amazing work they've done. Very dangerous work they do. Like I said, they've got to travel with the military. So what we're doing is we are raising money to buy them flashlights. They need flashlights for their staff. The staff, by the way, is not paid. Even the head of the, I did not know this till today, the head of the charity, Harkova Mir, that we're working with, she doesn't get paid, and she does this full time. So, I mean, amazing work these guys are doing. So we wanted to help them out. I mean, Vlad said Christmas gifts, but it is not a glamorous Christmas gift. You will appreciate this, because you imagine all the stuff we wanted for Christmas. What Vlad said they need for Christmas are flashlights for their staff. So Vlad found a super duper high-end flashlight, because these guys are basically using the lights to visit people in scary parts of Ukraine that are either war-torn or whatever, places where they're running out of power or have run out of power because of the Russian attacks, and they need really good flashlights. Vlad said actually they're exactly $47, the flashlights, just to say how much they are, that we're buying, and we'd like 30 of them. 30 of them would be $1,500, which actually isn't that much. That's not that much money. We've raised a lot more than that before, guys. So we want to raise $1,500 to buy flashlights for the staff of this nonprofit, for the staff of this charity, who will then use the lights when they are delivering food, clothing, toys for the kids, for the holidays, whatever they're doing, their work, helping these people out. I would appreciate if you do it. So for every $47 you guys chip in, we're able to buy one flashlight for one of the staff. I'd appreciate if you do it. The way you do it, finally, and I swear to God, I will get to your questions next, but as I said, this is important stuff. The way you do it is on TikTok. Go to my profile, look at the, I'll even show, I always like to show the TikTokers because I can at least demonstrate for you guys. I go to my profile, right? I look at the top, and you see the link in the middle that says Linktree, right? The link is right, more or less right here, right above tips and Q&A. It says Linktree, right? Click the Linktree and look what comes up. You get that page. The very first item on the page is my description saying, help us get flashlights for the staff of this charity. And it provides the PayPal address of my friend Vlad, who is also a volunteer at the charity, but Vlad has done nonstop work for us from the beginning, facilitating all of this. So Vlad is 100% trustworthy. We're just that. There's Vlad's PayPal address. Go on to PayPal, give your guys money. For the rest of you, I will put Vlad's, actually, I've got Daniel's thing. I'll put Vlad's thing up in a second, but actually for the rest of you, just go to Aravosis.com is probably the easiest. Hold on, I'm doing this on TikTok. Aravosis.com for the rest of you, and you can pull up the link there. All right. Thank you, guys. Daniel is saying, Daniel O'Neill, thank you, Daniel. Very nice of you. The U.S. is giving JDAMs, which we can explain in a second, which is odd as they are delivered by fighter jets. I was wondering about that. I was wondering what the story is with that. So you kind of need air dominance or balls of steel. Thank you, Benji, for that. Seems Ukraine is being set up to rule their skies. Thank you, Hazel, for the fireworks. With JDAMs, Ukraine can strike deep with a bang. So here's the weird thing, okay? Here's the weird thing. As Daniel just said, thank you, Allie, we are sending the Ukrainians JDAMs, which are basically, you take a bomb that is dropped from a plane, okay? Normally, they're dumb bombs, right? Normally, they're bombs that you drop, and thank you, Tracy, and you kind of hope the bomb hits the target. It's like World War II, when they would use those sights in the plane and look at the wind and say, okay, if we drop the bomb right now, we hope with the wind, it'll hit the target, right? What the JDAMs does, it actually, you strap it onto the bomb, and it's got things like wings and fins on the back, and they can be controlled long distance. Thank you, old disgruntled. I appreciate that. I mean, I'm not the expert on JDAMs, but I do know that basically they work with these fins and the rudder that you can direct the bomb, and you can get it, you know, using GPS and everything else. It has its own tracking system. You can really make these dumb bombs incredibly effective. The thing is, what Daniel's saying is they're bombs that you strap these to bombs dropped from airplanes. I mean, what's the deal with that? Ukraine has not been using its Air Force that much. I mean, they've been using it to some degree. You're Bob, exactly. They've been using it to some degree. The Russians have been using their Air Force to some degree. Neither side has really full control of the air. What is most important is that the Russians don't, because the Russians, we thought day one, within 1 hour, the Russians would control the airspace over Ukraine, and they never did. I mean, the Ukrainians, again, did an amazing job here. But why are we, I don't even understand what the advantage is of providing these. providing these to the Ukrainians. Again, if we're not going to give them more aircraft and we're not going to help them get the dominance of the skies, I don't get it. I don't get it. Aircraft, more munitions, but but the JDAMs are strapped onto the munitions is the thing, Callum. They're actually strapped onto the bomb you've got already. So I'm trying to figure out, will there be more Ukrainian planes taking off and dropping the bomb? Like, what is it? What is it? What's the reason for this war? Well, lots of reasons. 1, stop a genocide. 2, stop a war in Europe that could easily spread to the rest of Europe. 3, stop the renaissance of the Soviet Union from happening. The Russians have become the Soviets once again. They're happy to attack their neighbors. When they're done with Ukraine, they're going to go after, Moldova, but then they're going to go after the Baltic states. They're going to go after Poland. And we're going to have and then we're literally going to have World War III if the Russians aren't stopped. But also, personally, I'm a big fan of reason number 1. I'm not a big fan of genocide, and stopping a genocide in Europe where Russia's trying to wipe out 43 million people and an entire European democracy. And I'd say you could say democracy. It's a fledgling democracy, but it's a democracy, certainly 1,000 times more democratic than Russia. That's a pretty good reason right there. But I guarantee you that this is the beginning of the new Cold War. Beginning of the new Cold War. And this is interesting. So the Russians are kind of coming in. Interesting Russian trolls. The Russian trolls are trying to swear at me in Greek, but using an English script. Guys, like, okay, bye-bye. Ukraine ain't no democracy. Ukraine is more of a democracy than Russia is. They get very tired. They're very angry. See, very angry now that we're talking about why it matters. Well, it does matter. Promoting democracy abroad matters. That's something I've always believed in, and it's something that Trump has tried to get us away from. And unfortunately, Trump's followers are trying to get us away from it. But true Republicans, actual Republicans, and thankfully a lot of Democrats too, understand that it is an inherent good to have democratic systems and democratic countries and peace worldwide. It's better for the economy. It's frankly better for all of our economies, as well as better for the people in those countries. Ben, let me pull up Ben's question here. Surely, don't call me Shirley. Surely at this point, we've called Russia's bluff with nuclear weapon threats as every time we give Ukraine something Russia doesn't like, they just hit civilian targets in protest like we saw today. Now, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Oh, Otanbat is coming in from Ukraine. Hello, Otanbat. Good to see you. This is a really good point. This is a good point. Okay, that's perfect. Sorry, my cousin is coming over and grabbing me for dinner tonight. He's texting. He says he's coming at 6:15, which is perfect. Oh, okay. All right. Reservation is at 6:15. All right. I'm going to see. Oh, geez. All right. Kind of confusing here that he did that. You know what? Give me one quick second here, guys. I'm going to, while I'm talking to you, see if I can change my reservation with my cousin for tonight, because it's 6:15 and I was going to join him for dinner immediately after the show, but now we're already getting a little behind here. So let me pull this up. Sorry, one quick second here. I apologize, but I'm multitasking. This is what happens when you've got reservations. Actually, I don't know if it's going to let me. One second here. Let me pull up, see if I can get 6:15 instead, and then I'll cancel the earlier one. All right. One moment, guys. I apologize. 6:30. All right. 2 guests. 6:30. I can. Good. All right. As I said, I apologize, guys, but I've got to get dinner set up here. All right. All right, no text messages. All right, 6:30, 2 guests. As I said, I apologize here. Okay, there we go. All right, now I can go and cancel my other one, and then I swear to God, I will be uninterrupted. All right. These are the things we deal with. Sometimes we deal with my dog having to go pee. Other times we deal with restaurants. So, this is what happens when you have sort of when you got your own show here. Here we go. Okay. Your reservation. All right, I'm going to cancel this one. Cancel this one. Hopefully it won't get 6:15. Perfect. All right. Good. And we've got the other one. All right, perfect. I will show him. All right. Good. All right, sorry guys. Mark, here we go. New time, 6:30. All right. 6:30. Okay, there we go. All right, I apologize, guys. All right, I am back now. So, so Ben raised the question of, doesn't it seem like we've already sort of called Russia on all of their threats repeatedly, and they keep bluffing and saying, "Oh, you better not. You better not. You better not." Remember, they were saying, what were they saying? The HIMARS. You better not give Ukraine HIMARS, or else. Well, we gave them HIMARS, and what happened? Nothing, right? Now they're pissed about the Patriots. We gave them the Patriot missiles. What happened? Nothing. I mean, it's all they can do. All the Russians can do in response is blow up Ukraine with more missiles, which they're already doing. And the Ukrainians have already said, we are willing. I'm still in Chicago. We are willing to accept that the Russians are going to keep attacking. We would still rather have the missiles. We'd still rather have the HIMARS. We'd still rather have all of this stuff. So anyway, let me see here. Holly, I did not see something from Holly. Let me pull that up. Oops. Super chat from Holly while I was, that must have come in as I was looking at everything else. So no, I'm with you. I think we've made it pretty clear already, Ben, that Russia's bluffing with all of these things, but for some reason we're still afraid of sort of calling them on it. Holly Tippett, I know it's off topic, but what are your thoughts on North and South Korea? Do you think this will turn into something bad? Oh God. I don't, God, I don't know if there's something going on like today that you're worried about. I know in the last, what was I seeing in the last couple days? Was I not seeing something in the last couple days about the South Koreans wanting to expand their military? I don't remember. I just don't know what in particular you're worried about. I mean, North Korea has always been crazy. Okay. North Korea tried to blow up, what was it, the South Korean cabinet back like in 1983 or something like that. But I don't, the thing is, if South Korea attacks North Korea, if North Korea attacks South Korea, we will be there to defend South Korea. I mean, we will be. So I'm not worried in that regard. No, I shouldn't say I'm not worried in that regard. I'm worried because obviously there would be a war and we would be a part of that war, which would not be a good thing. But North Korea has always been kind of crazy. I mean, I'm not sure what to say about. I mean, I'm also not necessarily the expert on what's going on with the Koreas right now, but they've always been nuts. And drones. People are saying drones. North Korea's, they're sending drones over South Korea. They like to play games. I mean, the North Koreans do all the time. He wants attention, and he's nuts. I mean, and he actually is nuts. It's one thing with the Russians. The Russians aren't nuts, but the North Koreans, they're nuts. I mean, so that I'd be worried about him, as far as wars breaking out. I don't know. He could try something stupid with regards to South Korea, though. He really could, But all we can do is let him know and let China know, because China is the big benefactor of North Korea, and say, you're going to have a war on your doorstep, China, and we're going to be a party to it if he goes after South Korea. And I'm sure we have let them know that, though. Title of an Atlantic article: Sudden Russian Death Syndrome. It's not a great time to be an oligarch. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's for sure. Sarah Bradshaw wondering if, the JMAR, you mean the J, well, it depends. The JDAM, you mean, could be fired from Sea Kings. Ukraine does have helicopters that shoot missiles. I don't know. So, okay, Sarah's saying about the Sea Kings. Now, the Sea King helicopters are helicopters that the Brits are giving the Ukrainians. They had already reported that 3 had been given, but then the latest news was that the Ukrainians have definitely received 1 at least. Now, Callum is saying the Sea Kings are unarmed. Now, these helicopters, I was told, okay, they're search and rescue helicopters, but I had read something about a month or so ago saying that it is quite possible the Brits are training the Ukrainians to use these helicopters also as submarine hunting helicopters. Now, I don't know, I don't know. But that's still, when you hunt a submarine, you still can hunt a submarine with means that are not, you don't necessarily use bombs. I mean, you use bombs to blow up a submarine, but to hunt it, you need sonar and stuff like that, right? Which is different. So I don't know. I still don't know. I don't know, Sarah. I don't know what the deal is with okay, this raises the question again of why are we providing the JDAMs? What kind of weapons? Oops, in my eye. What kind of weapons does Ukraine have that they will be putting the JDAMs on? Because it doesn't seem like the Ukrainians are doing a lot of strategic bombing. Ray is saying, Raymond, the JDAMs, the U.S. has over 400,000 or that's 400,000 kits. The kit fits to dumb bombs and have a range of up to 28 kilometers. Sure. But what bombs are we putting these on? Typically, I thought the JDAMs would go on bombs dropped from airplanes. The Ukrainians aren't dropping a lot of bombs from airplanes, are they? Right? So what would they be using this for? I mean, that's the thing I don't know. Whatever. Oh my God. They're so between its Western allies, to the U.S. as Western allies and Iran. Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, again, this is sort of getting us off topic. I mean, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov has warned that if a nuclear deal is not reached between the U.S., its Western allies, and Iran, it could lead to an irreversible arms race between the two countries. What two countries? You mean the U.S. and Iran? I'm not sure what that means. What is the potential outcome of the lack of a nuclear deal between the U.S., its Western allies, and Iran? The potential outcome is that the new prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, who has a coalition government that is the most conservative government in Israel's history, will go and bomb the bejesus out of Iran. The problem is it's not clear that's enough to stop their nuclear weapons program. But I think, there is no way in hell. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Israel's got more than planes. Israel's got nuclear weapons. Israel's got over 100 nuclear weapons. Maybe they've got a lot more now. But, years ago, it was reported Israel had at least 100 nukes. So, I mean, that's the outcome of that. I mean, if the Russians really worry about it, maybe the Russians should do more to help. But let me see here. I mean, I'm just not sure the Ukrainian MiGs are being used that much. That's the thing I'm not understanding. They could start dropping a lot of bombs from airplanes if it's safe for them to fly the airplanes. I mean, yeah, I'm just not sure about that. Yeah, sure, Otan, no problem. Let me look here. Oh, we got another couple of minutes, and then, well, actually, I'm not in as much of a rush now because I was worried about having to leave for dinner, but now my dinner is postponed a few minutes, which isn't too bad. Let me pull up on TikTok again. Q&A. Oh, thank you. Who was that? Oh, pediatric nurse. Thank you, pediatric nurse. I think that was you that did the ka-ching. I mean, I don't know whether you intended it to ka-ching, but it did. I don't fully understand what close the skies means regarding Ukraine. Can you elaborate? I mean, okay. Basically, the idea would be for you. Well, there's a couple different issues going on here. I mean, people are saying that, some people are arguing that the U.S. should set up a no-fly zone and close off Ukraine's skies to only Ukrainian planes or American planes, right? So the idea of closing the skies would be the same thing for the Ukrainians, that they would come in and they would somehow manage to protect their airspace so only Ukrainian planes could fly, and anytime a Russian plane flies, it gets shot out of the sky. But it's more complicated than that. In order to set up a no-fly zone, which basically means just that, you want to protect the airspace over a country or over a region, whatever, so that only people you allow can fly there. You not only need to potentially knock out the other guy's airplanes, but you've got to knock out the other guy's missiles, because the other guy, for example, the Russians, they're going to have surface-to-air missiles. They're going to have missiles that when the Ukrainians fly, the Russians try to shoot the missiles and knock them out of the sky. So you would have to destroy all of the Russian missiles on the ground, and you'd have to destroy the Russian radar on the ground that is used to pilot those rockets, those rockets at the Ukrainian planes. Now, the reason this has been a big deal for the United States is when people talked about the U.S. setting up what's called a no-fly zone. In other words, a zone that no one can fly other than Ukraine or America or our friends over Ukraine, it would require the U.S. to knock out all the Russian missiles that could shoot planes. Well, the problem is a lot of those missiles aren't just in Ukraine, they're in Russia. So we would literally have to hit Russian planes, Russian missiles on the ground in Russia, which, the U.S. doesn't want to do. Ukraine could try, but Ukraine doesn't have, sort of, this is where you get a little over my head, and maybe the military folks know. I don't know whether Ukraine would need more weapons, whether Ukraine needs more fighter jets, but currently neither side really controls the air that well. But that's to Ukraine's benefit, because Russia should have been able to control the airspace over Ukraine, which would have given Russia free rein to do whatever the hell it wants. So that's my long-winded answer of kind of what it means when you say to sort of close the airspace or control the airspace, but you want to close it to the Russians coming in. Thank you, Hazel, for those. Not sure Soviet dumb bombs can be used in JDAMs. I don't know. All I know is there's clearly some. We're giving the Ukrainians JDAMs to put on something. So, all right, let me do a quick recap of the news, and then, Tommy, let me answer Tommy's question really quick. So Tommy is saying we can't fund this war indefinitely. We are broke ourselves. Sure. But the war isn't costing that much. This is the thing that gets kind of interesting. And this is one of those things where people often think foreign aid, right? The amount of money the U.S. spends on foreign aid is some crazy percentage of the budget. You ask people, like, what percentage of the U.S. budget is foreign aid, the money we give to foreign countries? And usually they'll say 10%, 20%, 30%. It's less than 1%. It is much less than 1%, actually, how much, what percent of the U.S. budget is I believe it's much less than 1%, actually, is the foreign aid budget. The war in Ukraine has cost us maybe 80 to 100 billion right now. It's not nothing. I mean, that's a good amount of money. Guess how much the tax cuts that and I'm not attacking Donald Trump, but I'm saying the relative scheme of things. The tax cuts that Donald Trump passed with the Republican Congress cost $2 trillion with a T. Okay. This is $100 billion with a B. Okay. So that's a lot less. My point is, this isn't costing that much. I raised the tax cut thing, not to play politics, but to say, whenever there's a tax cut, we always say, oh, well, that's okay. The tax cuts are okay. Those tax cuts cost us $1.5 to $2 trillion every time we have a big tax cut like that. We've always found the money to do it. The war in Ukraine just isn't costing that much. The Defense Department budget is over $800 billion this year with a B. Okay, the new budget that just got passed, $800 billion. This is $80 to $100 billion. That's not that much of the Pentagon's budget on an annual basis, but also we are destroying Russia. We are absolutely destroying Russia with the support that we're giving Ukraine. The Russian military has been destroyed, not just in terms of showing the world how empty the Russian military is, which is really important because let's face it, the U.S. military exists for, 3 reasons. 1, China. 2, Russia. 3, terrorism. There's other reasons, but those are the big 3, right? Those are the big 3 why it exists. We just took down one of those reasons, like not just a peg. Russia is on its knees right now. Their military is decimated, and they've also been knocked down on their knees in terms of that nobody respects them anymore. But that's important because a lot of countries in the world were afraid of Russia. Now they're not afraid anymore. That's a hell of a bargain to have spent $100 billion on, when part of the reason our defense budget is so big anyway is that we've got to protect ourselves against Russia. So No, I don't. But the final point. Literally no one. This is an important question he asked, though, or an important point. Literally no one has said, I'd love to spend more money on Social Security, but we just passed the Ukraine bill and there's no money. No one has said that. No one said it about Medicare. No one said it about our highways. No one said it about anything. There has been no discussion whatsoever that, Ukraine, too expensive. Now we can't spend money at home. No. I agree. Our budget is a problem. Our budget deficit and our national debt is a problem. But you know what? I like tax cuts as much as the next guy, but let's stop having $2 trillion tax cuts every other year, which we keep doing. I mean, we can't. So anyway, that's my take on that. All right, quick summary here, and then I'm going to go, guys. Ukraine's Air Force reported that a lot of Russian missiles hit today, 69 cruise missiles, 54 of which were shot down by the Ukrainians, and Russia launched 120 missiles in total at Ukraine over the last day. Ukraine may have sent another drone to the Engels Air Base in Russia. The Russians claim it was shot down. Who knows? But still interesting. Ukrainian S-300 anti-aircraft or anti-ballistic missile was shot down, or at least landed in Belarus. So that was kind of fun. Then I got into a very long discussion about why the U.S. is not providing longer range weapons to Ukraine, longer range missiles in particular. Long discussion. Can't recap it. That was a good 20 minutes probably. The UK will commit nearly $3 billion in aid to Ukraine next year. And the U.S. is considering sending Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine. And I pointed out that considering doesn't really matter. I care about what we do or don't do. I don't care about consider. All right, guys, I'm going to get going. I've got dinner with the cousin tonight. I'm very excited. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the gifts. Thank you for helping out if you can. Like I said, for the charity drive we're doing, we're raising money to get flashlights for Ukrainian charity called Harkovu Mir that delivers Meals on Wheels to shut-ins, to people that are still in their homes in war areas in Ukraine, children, all sorts of different things. The people they help, and we're getting them flashlights because of all the Russian bombing. They need them. It's going to be our Christmas gift to the actual staff of this charity. The staff gets paid no money. Thank you, Hazel, for that. Even the head of the charity doesn't get any money. So we wanted to buy them gifts. It's about $47 a flashlight. So if you can chip in, every $50 you give, we'll buy a flashlight. So that's pretty cool for a Ukrainian who is doing God's work over in Ukraine, helping get food and clothing to Ukrainians around the country. So pretty cool stuff. All right. Thank you, guys. I will see you tomorrow. À NYC, mais je serai pas à NYC, but quand même, Franck, si tu viens à Washington, je serai là. All right, guys. I will see you. Thanks again. And I'll see you tomorrow, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you again for the gifts. Thank you for fighting the trolls. See you guys.